Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, and welcome to another exciting edition of the IATEFL live show. I'm Nikki, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this afternoon. And can you believe it? We are just 40 days away from the conference. That's incredible, 40 days. So this afternoon, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by one of our esteemed plenary speakers, Zarina, who's going to be telling us everything really about the journey into ELT and also what we can expect from her plenary at the conference. And also we're going to be joined by John, who's going to give us some interesting updates about what we can expect. So without further ado, let me welcome Zarina, who's going to chat to us this afternoon. Zarina, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Zarina, you're in Costa Rica at the moment, aren't you?
That's right. It's 8 a.m. here in Costa Rica.
That's incredible. Thank you for getting up so early to join us. Zarina, okay, so for anybody who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also about your journey into ELT?
Mm-hmm. Yes, little bit unconventional journey into ELT, perhaps. I'm of Indian heritage, born in the UK, and I went into sciences very early on, thinking I was no good at languages. I tried French at O-level. It was in the days of O-level. And I remember thinking, I make so many grammatical mistakes, and it was all about écoutez y répétez. And that was basically the only speaking we got to do. But I was actually a trilingual speaker by the age of 4, and I didn't realize that mattered, that didn't exclude me from languages, because I just had the classroom experience of learning a language. I felt I got on better with the sciences. So that's what took me in that direction, only to find myself quite accidentally in a place that needed an English language teacher, and without any qualification, by being an English speaker, I could help out in this private language school. And I thought, I know nothing about teaching, I can't do this, and absolutely loved the experience. Went back to the UK and qualified in EFL and started my EFL journey, and found that I could fall quite naturally into the EAP world, because nobody really liked taking the science group or the engineers or the mathematicians. And I was like, oh, give them to me, please. So that was my first sort of way in, if you like, to EFL.
That's so interesting. And has the fact that you spoke 3 languages as well as English, has that been influential at all in your journey as a teacher in EFL EAP?
Yes, very much. And also I think that first experience of working in a small language school in Greece, because the school owner had learnt English in a very informal way, picked it up by working and living in an English-speaking country, and had come back to teach people in his area English. And he didn't stick to grammar rules or anything. He was much more about acquisition and engaging with the learners. So I learnt an awful lot from that in terms of engaging and classroom experience. But from my own perspective of language speaking, I valued the need for communication, and connecting with the people that you speak with, rather than having to be absolutely accurate when you're speaking. And that has helped me move around, and in most of the places where I've worked, I've tried to learn the language of where I'm living. And I very much still need that, the communication first before getting all the rules right. And yes, I'm a very inaccurate speaker of a few languages, but I can communicate.
Yeah, I say that about Czech as well, that I speak very bad Czech very well, but it's about communication. But that's really interesting. So you did go from there, as you said, écouter à répéter, into a completely different mode of just speak and try and convey the message rather than memorize chunks of language. That's
right,
interesting.
Yeah.
And so did you abandon science completely other than focusing on EAT?
No, it has stayed through. I'm very interested in keeping up to date with a lot of science and technology. It doesn't scare me as it might do some people in EFL, because it's sort of like, oh, you hear these comments of, oh, I don't do maths, or oh, I can't really appreciate that. So that still has part is part of my life, and also the neurosciences, the way neurolinguistics has developed, to me is a wonderful marriage of both language learning world and how the brain works. And for me, it's really nice to have that evidence based for learning and teaching in the classroom, to be able to think, okay, this works not just because I know the students like it, but this works because this is what's going on in the brain, and this is what I can actually help and facilitate to take place in the brain. And that's why the learning seems to be more efficient, rather than just be a guessing game, I think.
Absolutely. And so once you qualified in the UK, where did your journey then take you?
Oh, it took me to Czechoslovakia, as it was then, and it took me to the city of Bratislava, the Technical University of Bratislava. Then I went on to Japan.
Oh, wow.
Spent 3 very interesting years in Japan, teaching in junior high school. Only to find that the textbooks there had 0 listening activities. They were state textbooks, but they didn't have any listening at all. So I became part of a group that wrote listening materials to actually complement the state textbook there. Then from there, I decided to do my master's in linguistics in TESOL. And at the time, I took this additional module because I had the time on teacher education. And I've actually since then been in the world of teacher education mostly, yes, this whole century, I can say that. It took me post masters, I went to Saudi Arabia, and I was based in the city of Dammam, where the British Council were just setting up a women's centre. And I was part of the very first women's centre there in Dammam. Then I went on to Nepal and worked for VSO, doing teacher training in very rural part of the world. I thought it was just another EFL posting, but the real life situation on the ground, living without electricity, without running water, definitely no telephones, and forget digital technology. You had to
Wow.
walk to visit the schools and do observations. There were no roads in the areas where I was working. So that made me really reassess teaching with very few resources and very, very large classes. We're talking, 70 plus in a school, not a university setting, with fixed furniture into mud floors. So it was very different world to that I had been used to. But it made me appreciate also how for marginal communities without resources, what education is about. Going to school was after you'd done a couple of hours work in the fields with your parents and family, before you had your main meal of the day, and then you went off and you didn't eat again until you came home. And so engaging students who school is almost an afterthought for them. And then on top of that, it's like teaching English in a world where they would never have contact with English. You really had to think about how to make it meaningful and purposeful, rather than just jump through these hoops so you can get your school leaving certificate, which had been the case. So it's very, very interesting work. That led me to a lot of work in terms of gender equality and diversity and inclusivity issues because of caste systems, because of defined cultural roles for women and girls in the community. But also to have to respect local traditions and cultures, and without rocking the boat as an outsider, to work with those communities to try and overcome the barriers that a lot of young girls and women faced was really important for me. And from my own cultural background, although I was born and brought up in the UK, my parents are both from India, and that there are cultural similarities that I found, and so I then came back to the UK, did some training work for the VSO training department, where they trained future volunteers going out to their posts. I was part of writing courses for them as well. Some of the courses were for EFL teachers going out to be teachers in their voluntary roles, while also teaching at the University of Southampton and sixth form college in Southampton, Itchen College, where I was teaching English as a second language, English as an additional language, and IELTS courses as well. So that gave me a really nice mix of the type of teaching that goes on in the UK, which is really nice. Then I went to Sri Lanka post-tsunami, and I got involved further into developmental work with education. And I was part of a group that wrote a course which was learning through English. So it was CLIL, basically. It was content language integrated learning. And CLIL was a fairly new thing then, but I realized that's actually what I'd been doing all along with my science, engineering, math students, except I didn't have the title CLIL. So the CLIL content in Sri Lanka, the course that we wrote, was as a conflict mitigation tool. So it was a 1-month course that local government staff would attend to improve their English, because English was the governmental language in Sri Lanka. And so it was to allow local government staff to work with English, improve their English, but learn about education, health, conflict, and economy, because that affected the work, their day-to-day work. And they were dealing with a lot of NGOs, charity staff who had descended on Sri Lanka to help in the post-tsunami construction. And so it was sort of a multi-purpose course, but it was really, really interesting work, researching, writing, and delivering that. And that's continued to be delivered by local staff there. So it's been really nice to have that. And then my work took me to the Americas, South and Central America. And I started doing freelance. In between, sorry, I did forget, I was at the University of Chichester.
Oh, wow.
A call out for my colleagues there, doing professional development courses for teachers who come to the UK. Some of them were CLIL courses, some of them were teacher development of different areas. Some of them were teacher training courses, so how to become a trainer of teachers. And so, yes, that teacher training led me on to freelance work, which took me to the Americas. And that's what I've been doing ever since, really. Speaking,
my goodness.
writing.
You've got you've done everything.
Well,
it feels like, yeah, you've taught in so many different contexts, so many different types of learners, and just such a great wealth of experience. This is a fascinating story to listen to. Something that strikes me at the moment is I wonder whether your experience has influenced the topic of your talk at the conference at IATEFL.
Yeah.
I think maybe we could I pedal back a tiny bit, and just for anyone who's watching, what's the name of your talk is Because You're Worth It. Without giving the game away, can you tell us a little bit about what you would like to talk about at the conference?
Yes, I decided to borrow the logo from L'Oreal, Because You're Worth It. But Because You're All Worth It is actually the title, because I think we need to ensure that everyone is included in the learning process. And it's very common in classrooms, and I've seen many parts of the world where the teacher is often aiming their class at the ones who are most interested. And the others tend to get left behind a little bit or ignored a little bit, or the quieter ones prefer to stay quiet, so you don't want to force them into any uncomfortable situations. So teachers find it really difficult to reach everyone. And so classrooms around the world are basically teaching to the few and not the many, and how to try and make our classrooms more inclusive, whether we're talking about diverse forms of learning, learning difficulties or differences, different abilities, different ways of thinking, different ways of receiving information. And also in terms of gender, how gender plays a role in the classroom. Those with the loudest voice tend to get the most attention. How can the teacher cope with all of those things? And my talk is aimed also at the publisher as well, and the writer, in terms of just reminding ourselves, are we excluding anyone? So are our materials or our classes being inclusive? Have we thought about equity? Have we thought about the diverse images or names or topics that we may use? Or are they the typical kind of, let's look at fashion, or let's look at etiquette of using a mobile phone, or what holiday did you last go on? And then maybe people in our classrooms who have never been on a holiday, that the textbook has been produced with a global audience in mind, but quite often there are classes in South America where students have never had a holiday as such. And so are we assuming a lot about our learners that shouldn't be assumed? And by those assumptions, we're actually excluding students' interests. And if we want to reach the greatest number of learners possible, we need to be engaging in them. So those are the thoughts that I want to discuss during the presentation at IATEFL. And I would love actually to be able to use some data who are listening today. I've got a Google form. I don't know if now is a good time to share that with our audience. But if you have time to engage with that Google form,
that would be great. I think people can see it on their screens now. So the QR code, if they scan it.
Yeah. So it's just a set of a few questions where I would love to get your feelings and thoughts on the materials that you use in terms of how culture is taught. And I think culture is a big thing, because we maybe think about, well, we're teaching English, do we need to be teaching culture of the UK? Is it all about red post boxes and telephone boxes and what time we drink tea? Or should we be thinking about culture for everyone who's engaging with that book, rather than the culture purely of English? And then if we talk about the culture of English, who owns English now? We talk a lot about global village and how English is a lingua franca. And so if English is a lingua franca, it belongs to all of us. So what is the culture of English? What is the culture in which we are using English as a tool. And I hope our audience will agree, in the sense that if it's a global language and a global tool, then the culture should be equally global as well. So yeah, if you can share your thoughts with me through that Google form, it'd be absolutely fabulous. And I'll bring that data with me to my presentation.
You've just posed so many interesting questions and given people so much food for thought. So yeah, I can't wait for the plenary. That sounds absolutely fantastic. And if there was anything that you could tell ELT professionals right now in terms of advice and looking to actively promote diversity and inclusion, is there anything that you might say to them, something very simple that could be actionable in their classrooms?
I think yes, communicate with your students, find out what they love and are interested in and want to find out more about. I think it's always a great idea doing a questionnaire at the start of a term or academic year or semester. And it doesn't have to be in English. Just because we're teaching English, the questionnaire could be in their own mother tongue if you share the language with them. And just find out their likes, dislikes. It could be just a tick box questionnaire with a box at the bottom of anything you would like me to know about you that you want to share with me. And so they may share things, personal things that they might not enjoy and that you could actually avoid as a topic in your classroom, because you know that it could be a trigger, or it's something that your students don't want to be involved in talking about. We shouldn't be assuming that everyone comes from a kind of nuclear family with two parents and siblings. Their situation may be different, but in the classroom, if you say, tell us about your family, this could be actually quite a traumatic experience for some of our students. So just on a basic level, get to know your students. Yeah.
That's perfect. That sounds like incredibly good advice. And I love the idea of doing it in their mother tongue if that's possible, because they may be better able to express themselves and feel safer and more comfortable. Zarina, thank you very much. We're greatly looking forward to your plenary, and that's on the Wednesday at IATEFL day number 2. So yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon, Zarina.
Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hello, and we're back, and we're joined by John. Hello, John. How are you?
Hi, Nikki. Lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Can you believe it's nearly a year since we saw each other last?
I know. Yes, you thought you'd avoided me, but no,
it's so hard.
We're back. We're back. Goodness, and I couldn't believe that little video there. The 9th time we're going to be in Brighton. Goodness, and it's coming around so quickly, isn't it?
It is.
Now, how many days? You say I've got 5.5 weeks to go. How many days did you say?
I got 40 days.
40 days. Oh,
when I counted it on my calendar. Yeah.
Well done. So for everybody, just a reminder, the conference is from the 16th to the 19th of April, and a really important date for everybody that's coming up quite soon now, frighteningly quickly, is the 8th of April, which is the deadline for booking your place online. So the online booking deadline is the 8th of April. That doesn't mean that you can't attend the conference if you miss that deadline. It just means if you have booked online first, then you get to register a little bit quicker when you arrive. So for those that can, that's the best way to do it. Okay, right. So news about the conference. So yeah, well, absolutely. Let me quickly plot the I probably shouldn't use the word plop it on screen, but I shall place this little information screen on, which is telling everybody that the preview brochure is out now. It's on our website. You can use the QR code if you want to and download the preview brochure. Find out about, well, we just heard about Zarina's really interesting plenary. There are 4 others to find out about, and a whole range of sessions, over 500 sessions within the 4 days of the conference. Very soon, within the next couple of weeks probably, we'll also have the actual conference program itself out, and that's another really useful document to look at if you are planning to come, because you can sit down first before you arrive and plan out what you'd like to see and what you'd like to do. There's so much choice. Really important to plan your days looking at that. So that should be coming out soon, as I say, within the next week or 2. And then just a reminder to everybody that it's not just a 4-day conference from the Tuesday to the Friday, the 16th to the 19th of April. We also have lots of pre-conference events on the day before, Monday the 15th. And you can, again, view this QR code or simply visit our website and find out about each one of those pre-conference events. Now, each one of those is organised by one of IATEFL's special interest groups, or some of them actually a combination of a couple of special interest groups working together to provide an academic programme on a very specific area of the profession, a topic which may be of specific interest to people. And so it's a self-contained 1-day event in preparation for the main conference. So do have a look at those. And yeah, gosh, it's coming around quickly and it's really building with excitement. Lots of people getting in contact, lots of people booking, and it's going to be great. I'm a little bit disconcerted, I have to say, with this background where we can see Brighton Beach and the sea.
Oh, I can't wait, John.
Is it making you feel seasick?
Not yet.
I hope not.
I haven't seen the sea for ages.
I
can't believe it's the ninth time that IATEFL's there.
It's, to be honest, it's a really popular destination. And there are a couple of really good reasons why we do go back so often to Brighton. One of them for our international delegates, because we have delegates from over 100 countries. It's so easy to get to Brighton from one of the London airports, particularly from Gatwick, but also from Heathrow and Stansted. It's quite close to London on the coast, and there's a direct coach and a direct train. So that's one sort of really good reason. For British delegates, of course, there are lots of language schools and course providers in the south and southeast of England, and so it's close to them too. So it really brings lots and lots of people together. So yeah, there's some good reasons why it's a popular place, and the city itself is so vibrant. There's lots to do, lots to see, some fantastic restaurants. I remember the last time we were there, I went to the most amazing vegetarian and vegan restaurant, which I still remember to this day. So I shall be looking to find that one again.
I was about to say, you going back?
Absolutely, yes. I should be
excellent.
van with all of the equipment, so looking forward to that.
Oh, do you know what? I love Brighton as well. I was there. Was it 2018?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's an absolutely fantastic venue. But my memory, just a word of warning to everyone: be careful about the seagulls, because they're quite vicious, aren't they?
Oh, aren't they?
They're like flying dogs, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
They'll come down and swoop down and eat your sandwiches and your chips. So yeah, it's.
You have to walk with your food and a hand covering it, or well, you won't need an umbrella because, of course, it never rains in England, but a hand to cover your food. So that, yes, the seagulls are vicious and dangerous. I quite agree.
Exactly. So be warned. Otherwise, fantastic venue.
Absolutely. We do have a little video, I hope, which can show, for those of you who are still thinking about coming, I've mentioned that online booking deadline of the 8th of April, and it can be sometimes a little mystifying about how to actually make your reservation on the IATEFL website. So hopefully, with the wonders of technology, I'm going to click my fingers in a second, and we're going to see a little video on it. If this goes wrong, it's not my fault, okay? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3. You see?
Hello, welcome back. Sorry, my headphones
Hi.
just went. Hello, absolute pleasure to be joined by Amir Esmaili. Did I say that correctly, Amir?
Yes, yes, absolutely right. Thank you, Nikki. Can you hear me well?
Perfect. It's lovely. Thank you very much. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Now, Amir, you were one of our authors in the Voices, IATEFL Voices magazine, and you've joined us this afternoon to talk to us about your article. Before we get there, can you tell us a little bit about you, how you got into English language teaching, and then we'll talk more about the article itself.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My story is not too different from many other teachers. I never planned to become a language teacher. I used to do business with my brothers, and it was a family business. And then after a while, I started studying and learning English 7 days a week. And after a couple of years, I became interested in teaching English. And then I started doing some training courses, learning how to teach. And after that, I became a part-time teacher. And then I started loving it so much that I quit my first job and I dived fully into the world of ELT. And it's been 13 years that I have been practicing English language teaching now. First, I began in Iran as a teacher of general English to adults for a couple of years. After that, I started doing exam prep courses, specifically IELTS, and then I did some IELTS teacher training courses, and then I moved to Vietnam. So it's been 4 years that I have been working and living in Vietnam with a sea change in what I used to do because I had only taught adults. But when I came here, I started teaching young learners and teenagers, which at first was pretty terrifying to me. But yeah, I have learned so much from it and I'm loving it.
That's fantastic. And is that where you're speaking to us from today?
Yeah. From Vietnam, in the south of Vietnam, a beautiful small town called Bến Tre.
Okay, I've never been, but it sounds amazing, and I'm glad that you're happy and that you're settled
You
there.
should, Nikki.
Okay, yeah, should I? Is it definitely worth a
You
visit?
should. You're not going to regret it.
Okay, maybe one day when I've saved up some money. So Amir, you've had a range of experiences and worked in different places with English language teaching, and you wrote the article which is called the non-localism advantage. So for anyone who hasn't yet read the article, could you tell us what you mean by the non-localism advantage?
Yeah. When I first came here in Vietnam, it didn't take me long to realize that there is a problem going on, not only in Vietnam, in this region. And that problem was that I noticed that there are foreign teachers with different looks who are immediately and automatically prized above local teachers, regardless of their qualifications, background, and anything else. And I didn't like that because to me, a teacher or any person must be valued and evaluated based on the content of their character and the quality of their practice in ELT. So I started writing about that. First, we had this native speakerism that, yes, there were so many language centers and still are that they prioritize native speakers for some uh, illogical reasons. And in this region, especially Southeast Asia, I noticed that so many language centers prefer to have people, teachers of different looks, to convince parents that these people speak English and they are great teachers, and they automatically were offered a salary which was higher than local teachers. Now, I wanted to bring this to people's attention because I felt that there were so many local teachers who actually cared about their classes, about their own professional development and their students, and they were being shortchanged. And some teachers from different countries, not even English-speaking countries, they were paid relatively higher than those other local teachers, and they did not put sufficient effort and time into their own practice and development, professional development. Yeah, and that's what I came to call non-localism advantage, because those teachers uh, automatically were entitled to have an advantage, an unjust advantage in some cases.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that it's not just in your context that this happens, and you do mention that quite possibly it's kind of this. It's to do with the clients are driving it, so that perhaps the people that are paying for the courses expect a certain teacher. But I was going to ask, so what is the result of this happening? You mentioned demotivation as being one of the factors that this can lead to. What else can happen as a result of potentially favouring for no good reason somebody purely based on the way they look over somebody else?
Nikki, there are two other things that I have experienced firsthand as the repercussions of this unjust practice. One of them, as you mentioned, is the demotivation of those local teachers when they see that there is a brand new teacher coming to their school who does not really speak English as well as they are expected to, and they are immediately placed in a higher position. They obviously get demotivated. The other thing that I noticed, which is really upsetting, is the relationship between local teachers and those foreign teachers. This chasm, this unjust discrimination has insidiously created a gap between local teachers and foreign teachers. And I guess it has caused local teachers not to be too keen on foreign teachers and forging a deep relationship with them. I noticed I was in a language center that I somehow overheard that local teachers actually did not want to do anything with foreign teachers purely because of this reason. And it was so sad because I was in a conference in Ho Chi Minh City I guess it was last year, by Macmillan, and I heard something really interesting by Drake Spafford from Macmillan, and he said that the teacher room of any language center is somewhere that magic can happen.
Yep.
Teachers can talk to each other, they can give creative ideas to each other, and I noticed that local teachers, in my context, Vietnamese teachers, barely talk to foreign teachers. One reason could be they may be shy, they might not feel confident to spring up a conversation. But the other reason is definitely this feeling of resentment. And another one is a false sense of superiority that some foreign teachers may get when they are automatically placed higher than local teachers upon their enrollment. They may conceive themselves as a superior teacher because they are paid twice more than local teachers who have been teaching in the same center for years. So that is the other, I guess, implication that we may see in the classroom.
Okay, so do you have any advice, any recommendations that you could give to teachers who find themselves in the situation of either being the local teacher and feeling frustrated, or being the teacher who might not necessarily have wanted more money as such, but just found themselves in that position? What could we do to harmonize the situation?
I guess the very first thing we can do to harmonize the situation is to start having some meetings with parents, because the primary reason for this practice is because a lot of parents, clients, they believe someone with a different appearance is better than someone who is local. So we need to raise the awareness of the parents, the clients, that a good teacher is a good teacher. A native speaker is not necessarily better than a foreign teacher, and a foreign teacher is not necessarily better than a local teacher. A good teacher is always a good teacher. A good teacher is someone who cares about their own development, who reflects on their practice. So I guess the first thing is to talk to the parents of the students, especially young learners. I'm talking about young learners primarily because that's what usually happens. Adults can make a decision for themselves. The other thing, I guess, is to hold regular meetings between local teachers and foreign teachers and talk to them and discuss the reasons sometimes for some policies, that because of the demand, we may have to make some changes. It is not necessarily because of somebody's appearance and the other factors. It is currently because of the demand of the market, and we have to do it. We are trying to eradicate the issue, but right now, so that I guess that would soothe the feeling of resentment or uh, anger among some local teachers.
Maybe, and it would certainly bring the issue to a fore so that it's kind of more out in the open and potentially the discussion can begin.
True.
Amir, thank you very, very much for sharing your ideas, your opinions, and also a few solutions with us today. I think that many people may find themselves in that situation, and certainly if you do, what Amir has to say is written in a very nice, accessible article in Voices. So please do take a look. Amir, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you very much for having me.
You're more than welcome. And unbelievably, I think that we've come to the end of the show this afternoon. That's just absolutely flown by. I'd like to say a huge thank you to our speakers this afternoon. So we had Zarina, who will be doing the plenary on Wednesday, talking about everyone being worth it. And as well, thank you very much to John, who's given us a little update and told us how it's looking and what we can expect. And also to Amir, who shared his experience and opinions with us. So on that note, thank you very much, everybody. 40 days till the conference. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next live show soon. Take care. All the best.